How, in your experience, has the lawyer-client relationship changed? And is there anything that clients now expect from their attorney that they typically didn't in the past?
So I think it depends. I think the short answer is yes, it's definitely changed, but it also depends on who your clients are. So for me, most of my clients are big insurance companies. And so certainly within the last, and even before I was practicing, within the last 15 years, their ability to aggregate big data and look at what their lawyers all across the country are doing, and even compare lawyers that they use within the same state and say, okay, when I send a case to them, the cycle time for them to open and close a file is, 17 months versus what is the other firm doing? Or our defense costs when it goes to firm A are higher or lower than when we send it to firm B. And so we also have to be aware internally of what our own data is and monitor it, where 15 or 20 years ago, the capacity to do that, maybe it existed, but people weren't doing it. But now the clients are doing it. And so the lawyers and the firms have to be looking at those things and be aware of it. And even more specific on a case level is being able to effectively evaluate individual cases. And so, let's say a bodily injury case, a car wreck, I need to know what the venue is and whether it's a conservative venue or a liberal one, whether we expect high verdicts or low verdicts. What are the judges like in that county? And what about the particular judge that we have? What about the particular injuries the person is claiming? And so you evaluate all those things, and then you come up with a range and say, okay, based on all the information we have, we think the case is probably worth in this range to settle it, and in this range is a potential verdict. And so, you talk with the client, you evaluate all those things, see what you can do with it, and what's the outcome they want to achieve. And so I like to have a really collaborative relationship where we talk about all those things and have really open lines of communication. But I also need to know, am I evaluating it correctly? And so one of the things I like to do is keep track of what are my evaluations, and then did the case settle within that range that I had projected? Or if we tried it, was the verdict within the range that I had projected? So you can keep up with stuff like that. So if you have individual clients, like if you're representing small businesses or individuals, and if you're a personal injury lawyer, then what your client wants is going to be different than what my big corporate client wants. But the most important thing is, regardless of the nature of the client, is communicating and establishing the expectations for the relationship up front. Because if you, the lawyer, aren't establishing what that relationship is going to look like, how communication is going to be done, the parameters for when you're available and not available, if you aren't setting those expectations, then the client is going to set their own expectation, and it's going to be what's convenient for them, because that's what we all treasure above anything else, is our own self-interest. And so they are going to assume that your availability is what suits them, or your means of communication is what suits them. So if you aren't communicating up front what you need out of that relationship and how it needs to be handled, they are going to do it, and it's not going to work for you, and it's going to come contentious, and it's not going to be an effective relationship that can be successful over the long term.